Welcome to this week's Hired How to Get the Jobs weekly review. Today we are going to be discussing follow-up questions and using them to your advantage in the interview process to get the answers to the questions you really care about. Getting ghosted is not just a phenomenon for a bad date. Really, this is a message more for HR professionals and recruiters. And then a little talk about why no one cares about you and how that's actually a good thing. And then lastly, we will get to your Q&A. So my name is Tony Martin. This is Hired How to Get the Jobs weekly review. Thanks so much for watching. If you don't know who I am, I write a blog called How to Get the Job. And I would love for you to go check that out because a lot of the content I discuss here is actually over there. Please take a look at Facebook. Follow me on Facebook at Hired How to Get the Job, Instagram, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, because if you like this video or you just like the Q&A part of this video, go to the Q&A section. I always put headers on the bottom for Q&A so you can just see where all the questions are and how they fall. But as always, use this platform to network, say who you are, what you're looking for. Use this platform to sharpen your skills. And if you know anyone who's looking for a job right now, make sure you direct them over to these different venues that I use to send out information, because it's only going to help them. I do resume writing, I do interviewing skills, techniques, I do mock interviews, and I even do coaching for companies. Right after this show, I'm actually doing a webinar where I'm a panelist on company culture. It's called Connected While Remote. Essentially, how do you keep your company culture alive while you're being remote, while you're remotely dialing in? So we'll have a really good discussion about that following this show. You'll have to go register for the event. You can find the link on my LinkedIn page. You can find the link on Hired How to Get the Job. But if you're interested in an HR professional about keeping your company connected to the employees, keeping the culture alive through a remote time, check that out. All right, without further ado, let's get rolling here. First, we got a lot to cover, so let me give you a quick federal update, okay? Federal update is legislation branch doing not much, or not doing much. I'm talking like Yoda over here, not doing much, okay? They're still debating. However, interestingly enough, the same thing that I'm kind of against. I'm against using executive orders to give to do anything. Frankly, that's not the purpose of an executive order. We've already talked about that last week. But President Trump's executive order to give $300 to every person in America, or $400 if the state signs off on it, it feels like it's moving forward. I know at least in the state of Arizona, checks have been cut for $300, which tells me that's $300 a week, which tells me this isn't getting protested, which is actually a smart move by the Democrats, even though I don't think it's constitutional to write an executive order to just give out $400, even though he had some money in the disaster relief fund. It's kind of gray if he could use it this way. But just to kind of give you an update, looks like that money is actually going out there. And when you file for unemployment, you might see a $300 or a $400 additional deposit on what the state's doing. So just so you know, if the state hasn't made the agreement, it should be only $300. Again, Arizona's definitely doing it. That's what I know so far. Also, let me give you an interesting or a little shine of hope here. Now, this is an update on the market. We're back to all-time highs for the S&P and for the NASDAQ. The Dow is still down, but a little bit. And yes, this is completely fabricated, okay? We've put trillions of dollars into the market. So yes, it has rebounded, but it's a sigh of relief that now we don't know what's next, right? We're going to be figuring out, okay, do we just take our wins and move forward, or are we a little apprehensive about all the debt that we're accumulating? And I feel like the government's decided is kick the can. Let's just be happy that the market's back up. Your 401ks have recovered. And you know, I kind of feel this is a good thing, even though I'm against debt and I hate it. The market forced businesses to close. The market forced this trough. The government created this, right? They said, we're closing businesses. Now, it's not just that, it's demand, it's COVID-19, it's all that. But the moment we as a society shut down, that's when the market declined. So the government really had to do something to fix it. So you can see that we were in a bear market for all of a month, and now we're back in a bull market. I don't know what's going to happen once we come out of this thing and we have to have the chickens come home to roost with the debt. But we were down as low as what, 33.9%, and we've actually now gone up from this point. If you invested $100,000 of money in this at this point, you now have $152,000. It went up about almost 52%, 51.7% from its bottom. So hopefully, if you're a 401k holder, you're happy about that, and just, you know, there's a little bit of hope here on during a COVID-19 pandemic. So let's now go to our first topic, which I wanted to discuss. I want to discuss, how do you use follow-up questions to really ask the questions you care about? Now, of course, when you're interviewing, you're going to care about things like, oh, tell me about where the company's going. Am I going to have a long-term job here? You know, things like that. You're going to care about the team, the goals. You care about that. But sometimes what you really care about is the work-life balance, because maybe you're a single parent. But if you ask that question, hey, what's the work-life balance here? Immediately, you are going to be crucified as, or I should say stereotyped or typecasted as someone that's lazy, doesn't really want to work. And you're afraid that if you asked, what's the work-life balance, they're not going to want to hire you. And chances are you're right. So do what I do as a recruiter. Use follow-up questions to really ask the question you care about. And let me give you the quick example. I ask this question all the time to check self-awareness. Tell me about a time you were unfairly criticized. I'm trying to figure out if you know what's unfair. If you tell me what a criticization is, I don't know. But I'm trying to figure out what you define as being criticized and then why it was unfair. So you're going to give me that answer. But I don't really care about your answer, because then I'm going to ask you follow-up questions which really help me figure out your answer. What was your relationship like with this person? How did they treat you after you were criticized? How did you amend? How did you confront them? Crucial conversations. That's what I care about. So now as the candidate, use that same technique. So in this case, there's going to be 4 or 5, maybe 6 things I want to discuss during this segment. You care about work-life balance. So you're not going to say, what's the work-life balance? You're going to say, hey, what's the company culture like here? Open-ended question. Let the interviewer go with that. I'd also say you probably want to ask that question with the higher level people, because they're going to have more authority to, even if they tell you, which often they do, they tell you that the culture is this when it's not really that. That's at least what they believe it to be and they perceive it to be, which means you're going to have their approval to then do what you need to do, because they've just outlined what they think the culture is. So when they say that, you know, what is the culture like? They're going to then go on this rabbit hole of we're like this, and where we care about family, and we care about that, and we care about this. Well, they might eventually hit on, and we have flexible schedules. And then you can go, well, hey, what does a flexible schedule mean? Because in my old company, this is what it meant. But I've worked for other companies where it actually meant you chose your schedule, but some people showed up at 7, some people showed up at 6, some people, you know, it was just flexible because you could take half-day Fridays off as long as you had 40 hours up until Friday. So what do you guys define it as? And then hopefully you're starting to figure out what the work-life balance could be. But you get there. You can also use the job description, because maybe they don't say anything about flexible time. Maybe they don't use anything to help you here. And you can ask a follow-up question. You can use the example. I see we're doing a system upgrade, and I always say we, okay? Already include yourself in the interview like you're already on the team. It makes them more comfortable. It makes me more comfortable. I see we're doing a system upgrade in 6 months. I did that same thing 2 years ago at XYZ company, and we were supposed to finish it in 3 months, but because we only had 2 people dedicated to the project, we ended up taking 5 months. What's the team like here, and what's the expectations for completing this project? Again, this is going to give you an indication as how they handle projects in work-life balance, even though you're not asking the question directly. You're now going to be able to tell, oh, well, you're going to have a team of 7 people. You're supposed to get it done in 6 weeks. And then this leads me to my next question, okay? Another question you might care about. The company goals, your department goals, and are they obtainable and are they reachable? Because now they've just kind of given you some indication, so you can use that question in the same manner to figure out, are you actually going to be able to meet the goals that are set forth for you in your department? And you can add, if you didn't ask that question earlier, you could say things like, hey, what's the team size like? You know, I know I got 8 people. We've already discussed that, but are there any really weak links on the team that you're concerned about? And do you have transition plans for them, or would you expect me to then kind of coach them? But if we couldn't coach them, is there an opportunity to move these people along to somewhere else? Again, that's going to give you knowledge of if you actually have the authority to make changes on your team, because often we're given roles where we don't have the authority, but we're expected to do these great things. And you're going to want to know that in advance. Okay, next question. Maybe you care about the commute, okay? Because Houston traffic's a nightmare and you have to drop off your kids or you have to pick them up or you're part of one thing. So just kind of, again, that could go back to flexible question with the culture question, but you can use the culture question to figure out, when am I expected to put my butt in the seat here? And you can even say things too, like, in previous companies, the team really didn't maximize the effectiveness of its people because it had such a strict policy on being here from 8 to 5. People were so worn out by 5 o'clock that it was assumed you unplugged from 5 p.m. till the next morning. And a lot of stuff got missed over the weekend. And you can kind of highlight your experiences as to why it might be better to be flexible. You're not going to change the company's opinion in an interview. And chances are you're not even talking to the right person to change the company's vision for the interview, but you're at least planting a seed of information as to there's a better way to do things, there's a different way to do things. And we're all figuring that out right now during COVID-19, right? Next, we'll do one more. I have vacation planned next month. Can I go on it? How do you ask that question? You just ask that question, okay? You don't be afraid of that question. We all understand as recruiters, as professionals, people had lives before they joined the organization. And when you set up a vacation, you typically do it a few months in advance, if not a year in advance, because maybe it's a cruise or a big trip at Disney World or something like that. And you want to buy, they get it. Just ask that question. But be really careful when you're asking a question about vacation next week and then work-life balance. And maybe you also are committed somewhere else on the side that you have to be out of the office once a week. Make sure you're not asking all those questions at the same time. Last one we'll talk about, seriously. Micromanager. You're afraid the person's a micromanager? Simply ask them what their leadership style is. If you ask, hey, what's your leadership style? And then they kind of say, here's what I do. Then you can explain different scenarios that you've worked in the past and how you've worked better in some than others or whatever. Again, use your questions to show you have experience and knowledge, which then they can leverage for you to be in that role, providing leadership for the rest of the team. Okay, so next topic, you got ghosted. Now, let me first define what ghosted is, okay? It is a term that young people, I'm not young, I am in my 40s, but young people use to say that you're being ignored, that someone just kind of left you at the moment you were expecting a response. You're dating someone and they don't call you back anymore. It's getting ghosted. It happens professionally all the time, and frankly, it's been happening for a very long time before we even knew what the term was. And the bottom line is Andrew Seaman, he wrote an article this week. Again, I've talked about him all the time. He works for LinkedIn. He has access to so many professionals in the field that whenever he pretty much emails someone, they respond because they want to be showcased on his platform. But realize it happens to everybody. I am working with several VP level executives and a couple of chief C-suite executives. Every single one of them has been ghosted recently. Okay, and what it is it's not submitting an application and not hearing back from the company. There's thousands of applications that get submitted. You're not hearing back from them. That's not being ghosted. But ghosted is once there's been a two-way communication of some sort and there's an expectation by you to hear back from them at a certain time and they don't, that's being ghosted. Have solace in the fact that it happens to everybody. That's your piece, okay? That's the candidate piece. Now, also make sure you're always polite. Make sure you're always communicating with expectations. You can help alleviate some of the ghosting by before every conversation is finished. When should I hear back from you? You can ask those kind of questions, and hopefully then if you do get ghosted, you can then come back and go on that day or the day after, hey, I was expecting to hear back from you yesterday. I never heard back from you. And the general rule is 3 times. Respond to that person 3 times. If they don't respond back to you, move on. But this is a lesson for you too, that when you're in the interview process, even up until the point you accept the offer, keep interviewing with everybody because we are in an ever-changing world. And the reason why it's happening more now than ever before is because our dynamics are shifting so much that the company has goals today and all of a sudden the stock plummets tomorrow by 50%. And what happens after that? After the stock plummets, all of a sudden we can't hire 4 people. Now let's talk a little bit about why it happens because it's extremely unprofessional, James, and I agree with you 100%, but here's why it's unprofessional and here's why it happens. People don't like conflict. Now I don't like conflict, but I don't avoid and run from conflict. So I truly can say in my lifetime, whether it was dating professionally before I got married, let's look at this fit. I have never dated after I've been married, but whether it was dating before I was married or professionally, I can't think of a time I've ghosted someone because I've realized this fundamental truth, which is important for every HR and recruiter person now. Now, this is, I'm talking to you for the next 1.5 minutes. Listen, you can only hire one person. And if you're doing your job correctly for every single role, you're probably talking to at least 10 to 12 people. So let's just say you're talking to 10 people and you're hiring one. That means that if you ghost people, you're ghosting 9 or ignoring 9 or hurting the feelings of 9 people for every one person you're building trust in. So you're eroding trust. You've lost trust in 9 people and you've built trust in one person. You do that for 10 roles a year, you've just eroded 90 relationships that you can never get back. And you might say to yourself, why does it matter? I'm a recruiter. They're going to come to me for a job. I don't need to go to them. But guess what? If you keep on doing that and you're hiring probably 10 people a month, so we're talking about 9, what is that? Almost 1,000 people a year that you are treating wrongly. At some point, that's going to catch up to you when you apply somewhere else. And you're going to apply somewhere else. And one of those VP level people that you didn't really talk to honestly, they're going to have an opportunity. They're going to remember your name potentially. And what does that mean? They're not going to hire you because they're going to remember how you treated the candidates. And what are you doing? You're not just eroding your relationship with somebody you didn't know. You're destroying your brand. You're destroying the company brand. So make sure that when you treat candidates the way that you treat the hired candidates just the same way as the non-hired candidates. You tell them honestly, hey, look, we can't move forward. You don't need to tell them exactly why. There's liability reasons there, but you have to at least let them know, James, we're going to move forward with a different guy or girl. And I'm sorry, this person was just a little better fit for the role than you were. I wish you all the luck. You treat them that way, and they'll certainly make sure that they follow up with you down the road. Okay? I think that was kind of it. But make sure that you're treating people the way you want to be treated. Now, let's talk to reason. We're going to get to your questions, okay? No one cares about you. I've been teasing this for 2 weeks. And I can't believe I'm going to run out of time again before we get to your Q&A. But let me first, you know what? We're going to come back to no one cares about you. Let me make sure that I don't have any questions queued up over here because I want to respect that people like asking questions. I asked the good trust, ghosting as a professional, agreed. Yes, conflict or confrontation, no one likes it. All right, good. Okay, so now let me get to why no one cares about you and why this is a good thing. Okay, now listen, your job in the recruiting process is to get people to care about you. But realize they don't, and there's power in that. It lets you not have to go into your whole life story with every single person on the phone, okay? It lets you realize that when you're interviewing, there's only certain things you have to focus on. Even if in the back of your mind you're concerned about this ugly thing that you don't want anyone to know about, chances are nobody cares because they only care about, can you do the job and how much do you want to make? And then eventually they care about, can you do the job well and how well compared to others? But initially, early on, that's all they care about. And it's your job to get them to care about you. So how do you do that? You do that by showing you understand their problems. You do that by showing that you're going to be able to fix their problems and you're going to be a problem solver, not a problem bringer. Okay, we've all worked with problem bringers. They're the ones that come to you every single day and go, so-and-so did this. Or they're like my kids. Now, oh, by the way, I haven't given a disclaimer, they've been good. My wife's not here. We're without a safety net again. Something might happen in the next 11 minutes and they might come in. And when I'm on that webinar about corporate culture, you bet I'll be talking about the fact that my kids are in this house and nobody's here to watch them except for me, because that is all about the corporate culture. But I digress and I'm sorry. It's just how I am. I'm too energetic sometimes. But you need to make sure that what they don't care about, what you don't want them to know, they probably don't care about, and they care about you being able to do the job. Are you going to be able to be affordable? And then once you get further along in the process, how do you compare to the peers that you're interviewing against that you don't even know? That's all you have to focus on. And realize that if you know which part of the interview process you're in, you can then answer the questions the way they want to be answered or heard. Meaning, first round interviews, it's a phone screen. There's not time for long, elaborate stories that are going to get forgotten and not appreciated. Okay? The phone screen is time for you to say, yes, I can do it. No, I can't do it. Yes, I have the education. Yes, I have this. Yes, I have. You go into some detail. I've always said that, but you lead with yes and you keep the answers brief. Once you talk to the hiring manager and the directors and the VPs, that's when you actually have the opportunity to go into a deeper dive about certain things that are concerning to you and will be concerning to them. But you don't need to go on these long soliloquies and these long things that I like to do because I like to talk in the phone screen, okay? Now, how do you get them to care about you? Okay, that's the next question. Is probably the most important part of this. You get them to care about you by understanding that you are the person they want to hire. And the way you do this is by being agreeable and being available. Okay? I say this a lot. I don't mean being agreeable means you turn a blind eye to unethical things. Okay? That's not what I mean. But being agreeable means that if they've given you 2 or 3 different times for an interview next week, you can make one, if not all of them work. Okay? You rearrange priorities to prioritize the job. You rearrange your life to make sure that you can actually make the interviews when they're available. Because as a recruiter, I know what it's like trying to herd these cats of hiring managers. I got 4 or 5 people with 4 or 5 schedules, and I'm very specific with how I need to fit you, the puzzle piece, into their day. And if you're like, well, I can't do Monday at 2, Wednesday at 3, or Friday at 4, but can we do Monday at 4? No, otherwise I would have asked you if you could do Monday at 4, okay? Figure out a way to make one of those things work. All right, now let's get to Q&A. And if you like the No One Cares About You segment, there's a much longer video, 7 minutes, I think, on my YouTube channel. Again, I'll do a quick plug there. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Make sure you check out the content there. If you like this, all this stuff is on there. I stream this show from LinkedIn and YouTube on the same day. Tomorrow's show on Facebook will be streamed on LinkedIn, on YouTube as well. So if you like what I'm doing, just go to the YouTube channel and save yourself trying to hop around different venues. All right, Q&A. Sorry, I got a little bit of ice in my drink, and I gotta chew it every time I drink, which is just bad planning on my part. But let's get to the Q&A. So first, if you have a question, feel free to type it in. And I answer live questions first, and then I go to my questions from clients this week. Let me just read to make sure we have any questions here. Give me a second. Oh, I'm going to give Russ a little prop here. You got a good comment here. In the day after email, so after you've finished your interviews, you have a day after email. Always, right? You send out an email to people. What's the best way to phrase that you'd like to be included in the next round, final round of interviews, and excited to join? I think it's just like that, Russ. Okay, so you've just finished the interview. The next morning, you're sending an email to an individual email and CCing the recruiter on each communication. So Russ is going to send an email to Mike, and Mike, hey, I really enjoyed our interview yesterday. Talk about something relevant to the interview. I'm excited about the next steps and look forward to hearing from you and your team. I don't think you have to overthink that one. I think it's pretty easy. Just make sure that you do it the next day, and then you don't bother the guy continually for the rest of your life. You bother the recruiter, okay? And you can even ask in that interview, hey, do you mind if I follow up with you with questions? Because often what's going to happen is that person's going to come back and go, hey, I don't mind at all, but first feel free to ask the recruiter before you ask me. They're going to lay the boundaries out for you, and you want to follow those boundaries. And I've not hired people because they couldn't follow my guidelines. I've had situations, Russ, and everybody, where I was interviewing somebody and I said, look, I don't have a role for you today, and I'm not going to have a role for you tomorrow, but at some point this year I will. Follow up with me via email once a month. And I would be so direct to say, you know what, today is August 19th, so Wednesday. Do me a favor, every third Wednesday of the month, send me an email. That way you put in your calendar, it's popped up, it'll keep you fresh on my mind, me fresh on your mind, and then that way you won't be forgotten. But do it once a month, don't do it once a week, because I can't handle it once a week, Stephen. There's just too many people. I'll tell you, Stephen, if you email me tomorrow, then you email me a week later, which I've had more often than not. I would say 80% of people I ask to check in with me once a month, check in with me once a week, or check in with me 2 times a week. I stop moving forward with them because they can't follow my simple instructions. And if you can't follow my simple instructions, I'm not going to be able to hire you. All right, looks like we got another question here. How do you answer the question, how would you structure this department when you don't work there and fully understand their problems? So during the interview process, Stephen, they're going to be giving you indications about what the problems are. And you can ask, hey, why is this role open? And they're going to tell you this role is open. I would always ask them, why is no one internally? This is a reflex question for me. Why has no one internally been interviewed for this role, or accepted this role? Or maybe they have interviewed, but you're not looking at them. Or this is going to tell you what's going on with their department, okay? Well, you know, actually everyone in the department's really new. Or we have a couple of problem childs you're going to learn about. They'll never be that bold to say that, but that's kind of what you can read between the lines. Or you pretty much ask them what's going on in the role and why this role exists and why no one's available. And that should help you understand what's going on and then allow you to bring value with your past experiences. And you can say, well, I was in a similar role at this company and we had a really green staff, and this is kind of what I did to bring them all up to speed. Truthfully, you can't be presumptuous. So I'm a big believer, Stephen, that in an interview, in a letter, frankly, in life, almost always, no absolute statements, but very often, I never say, I know this. I've gotten programmed to say, I think this, because I want to show empathy with the person I'm speaking with, not dominance. I want to show that I am with you and I feel your pain and I understand, I think what you're going through, but I might not, which gives them the door to then correct me without feeling like they're insulting me. So that's really where I go with that. I hope that helps. Feel free to call me, Stephen, though, if you want to talk further on that, because I know you are a phenomenal HR guy. I think you recently got the job. Feel free to put a comment there. If you got the job, I thought you did. I would love to hear about that. And a little win we can all celebrate here together. Okay, so Marianne in Houston asked me this week, how far back should a resume go? I've been told only 10 years. False. That is an absolute statement, Marianne, and absolute statements are often wrong. Maybe not often, but they're sometimes wrong, because maybe the job that you're applying for is most similar to the job you had 11 years ago. And if you only go back 10 years, guess what? You're not going to be qualified for the job that you were applying for. You need to make sure that you highlight the experience most relevant for the role to which you are applying. If it is 18 years ago and everything since then has not been relevant, then you probably want to switch from a chronological resume to a functional resume. I am more than happy to help you with that. Feel free to reach out to me, because obviously, maybe not obvious, Stephen got ghosted. Oh my goodness. Well, Stephen, I'm sorry. Stephen is a phenomenal HR director. So he was in the hiring process and I was super excited for him, but apparently he got ghosted recently, and I'm glad I got to talk about this. Stephen, it happens to everybody. I guarantee it's probably happened to everybody who's watching this right now and everyone who watches it later. So take solace in that. I know it doesn't make you feel any better, but feel free to take a look at that article too by Andrew Seaman, because it might help you through it. All right, Sharon in Orlando. I got an interview for a job I'm not excited about, and after hearing more about the role during the phone screen, I don't think I'm qualified for it. Should I take the interview? So I guess, you know, Sharon is now moving forward in the process, even though she's not qualified for the job. Now, first of all, you don't know where those people will be. I say this a lot. If you're interviewing for a job you're not excited about, for a variety of reasons, perhaps the people that you're going to be talking to also aren't excited about the job, and they may not be there very long. So even though you're interviewing with how to get the job, the person that you're talking to might be moving on to how not to get the job in 6 months from now, in a new company with a new fresh face and everything else. Well, you want to make a good impression on everyone you speak with, right? And it's networking, especially right now during COVID-19. You need to network. So yes, so first of all, take the interview, okay? To make sure you grow your network, if nothing else. Next, you don't know what they're interviewing you for, okay? You might not be qualified for that job. But maybe when they looked at your application, Sharon, they go, you know what? Sharon applied to be this director of HR. She's not the right fit, but we are going to be hiring a manager of HR in 6 months from now. Let's just throw Sharon in there so we can interview her, and maybe we can shortlist her for that other role. So you don't really know what's going on behind the scenes, right? You want to make sure that you're prepared for whatever opportunity pops up. So yes, take the interview. And when you do that, you can then highlight your concerns for sure, especially if you don't care about the opportunity. And you can even disqualify yourself, because then here's the fear, right? Like, what if they give you an offer and you don't want to take it? And that was one of my concerns. So I'm not going to tell you the company name, but they flew me to a faraway place in America. No, they flew me to Chicago to interview for this director role. And during the interview process, my real concern was, if I was going to get promoted in this organization, would I have to move to Chicago? Now, I knew at this point I really didn't want the job. Okay. They flew me up there. First, it was 2 days worth of interviews. By the end of the first day, I'm like, I met my hiring manager. I met who I'd be working for. I met the team. I was going to work here in Houston, but I knew I didn't want the job. Okay. So what I did was, day 2, I phrased questions in a manner that made them see I wasn't the right fit. Meaning, I said, look, I got some roots in Houston. I'm not against relocation, but I certainly understand. Am I right that to get promoted or to get higher than the director level, I'd have to relocate to Chicago because it seems like headquarters is there? I know you guys recently merged the team in Houston. Is there any opportunity for you guys to relocate to Houston and things like that? And bottom line, there wasn't. But I started putting doubt, seeds of doubt, in every single hiring manager. During the interview, I showcased, I think, my strengths. I think I made each person like me. I think I even made them think about me for other roles. But I also placed the doubt there that you probably shouldn't give me an offer because I'm not going to accept it. Throughout that interview process, so much so that they called me a few times afterwards saying, hey, we're sorry, we're not going to move forward with you. Of course, I was like, oh, I'm really sorry too. I was actually kind of relieved because I didn't want to reject them. It's interesting. I don't have an issue necessarily with telling candidates they're not the right fit, but I almost have an issue telling a company that I'm not the right fit for them. So there's some psychological issues there. But take the interview, figure out a reason why you don't like or want to work for them. Make sure it's justified. That's what the interview is for. And then make sure you have a couple of questions that you can then leverage to then place some doubt in their mind, which gives them a gracious way to break up with you as a candidate, and then allows you the freedom to have had a great interview with every single person in the process, a great networking opportunity, but also highlighted he ain't moving to Chicago, which means if we have a job in Houston that's going to be upward momentum, he's our guy. But so make sure you're not showcasing things that aren't true. All right. We ran out of time today, but I appreciate everyone being here. I thank you so much for your time and trust and just spending some time with me. So if you don't know, again, read my blog. Oops, sorry, Stephen. I don't want to put you up there. I wanted to go back to a different banner. There we go. So take a look at my blog, subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow me on Facebook, Instagram. Instagram, I do daily tips. The rest of this week, last week, and the previous week, we're doing all resume tips. A daily tip a day for your resume. It's in a 1-minute segment or less. Check those out. If you're an HR professional and you're looking to worry about corporate culture, follow me over in a half hour over at the webinar I'm doing, Remotely Connected. I'll throw that up on the screen just so we all can look at it real fast. Remote Connected. This is what I'll be speaking on today. How to stay connected through your remote environments is presented by LodgeRevs. And our panelists are going to be Ash Patel, CEO of Commercial Bank, which is a $1 billion institution. One of his VPs, Scott, Chief Information Security Officer, excuse me, Scott, he's going to be talking about how they went to digital platforms. And then I'll be talking about corporate culture and how to maintain that corporate culture and how they did things right and maybe how they did some things wrong as they were shifting from a pre-COVID workforce of 100% in the office to almost 100% workforce working remotely. Hope to see you next time. Remember, if you know anyone that's looking to get hired, needs help with their resume, needs help with interviewing, have them connect with me. Follow me on these platforms so I can help show you and them how to get the job. I'll see you next time. I hope you have a great rest of your week. Bye.